Right, 1 Kings 18. This week, let's look at the lessons through the eyes of the prophets. So let's call this one through the eyes of the prophets, shelter, because there is an individual in the service of King Ahab who is going to provide a good degree of shelter for the prophets in a day when it's really not safe for them to even exist. And so at the beginning of the story, God is going to tell Elijah it's time for the drought to end. So go show yourself to Ahab and I will bring rain. Elijah is going to get word to Ahab through a man by the name of Obadiah, not to be confused with the prophet Obadiah. This Obadiah seems to be over the king's household, and Elijah is going to get him during a time when Ahab and Obadiah are out looking for a way to save their livestock in the days of the drought. And so they have split ways. Elijah is going to come to Obadiah and say, go tell Ahab I need to see him, which is going to terrify Obadiah because he cannot necessarily rely on Elijah to be there when he gets back, since it seems that Elijah is known to disappear on a moment's notice. But Elijah is going to reassure him that I'll be here when you get back because I really need to see Ahab. It's time for this drought to end. My paraphrase, of course. But Obadiah is going to trust him enough to go get Ahab. And in fact, Ahab is going to go and find Elijah. They, however, surprise, surprise, are not going to be able to agree on whose fault it is that Israel is in a prolonged drought. Elijah, however, is going to say, I got a way we can sort this out, even if we're probably not going to see eye to eye. And so that leads to the famous confrontation at Mount Carmel, where he is going to say, since Israel is limping between two opinions, whether Baal is God or God is God, I have an idea. You take one bull for Baal, I'll take another bull for God. We'll offer them on separate altars with this qualification. Nobody make fire for the offering because the true God can make his own fire. And they say, that sounds like you're onto something. And so they agree. And so the prophets of Baal, along with the prophets of Asherah, roughly 850, I think, in total, agree to prepare their bull. And Elijah allows them to go first. Why? Because he has to repair the altar of God that they have actually torn down. And so after they have finished preparing their offering, surprise, surprise, no fire. And so they are going to rave on until noon, asking Baal to send fire, which he is never going to send because he's not real. Anyway, Elijah, on the other hand, begins to mock. And I can't blame him because even though mockery is sometimes frowned upon in the Bible after he and the prophets have been chased and persecuted and many killed, I think we can indulge him a little taunting and he gets in plenty. After which he is going to pray to God to send fire, which God is going to do. But not until Elijah has instructed 4 jars of water to be poured over his offering 3 times, making sure that the trench he's dug around his altar is filled. And the fire that God sends is going to lick up not just the offering, but the water. And it's going to say, I think, even the sand and the pebbles around the altar, making it once again clear to the people of God that there is only one God. And so there are 2 things that caught my attention. First of all, if you've got an Obadiah in your life, please count yourself blessed, because I was talking to a young man this week who's helping me to understand life on the college campus for some of the students. And he talked about the way in which community is not an assumption for everyone. And so when we have people in our lives that provide the hub for community, that's a tremendous blessing. But even more, understand that Obadiah not only provided community, but shelter, because it wasn't even safe to be a prophet at this time. And so when you have people in your life who go beyond providing you a hub for community, but a place for safety, even at their own risk, because that's what Obadiah was doing, count yourself blessed. But to the degree you don't feel you have that, hold on. We got some things to notice in the next chapter when Elijah, after this great victory, is going to feel extremely isolated as he himself is chased out into the wilderness. But for now, it's important to note that Elijah did not simply want to win this victory just so he could cheerlead for God. He wanted the people to know that they could go back to the days of Solomon, the days when Israel was the greatest nation on earth, if they would simply start making better choices. And now they've reached a point where the people are ready to make better choices, but it's still not going to be clear that Ahab, their king, is ready to make better choices. Something we'll see more of in the next chapter, chapter 19, as we look at Israel through the eyes of the prophets. This time, as Elijah is going to need a little help.